Hey, Chimicum Junior Senior High School, Miss G here. I'm going to try and attempt to walk through a little bit of your new theory packet with you, starting with learning goal number 30. All right, so this is the packet that has the piano keyboard on the front. And some of you have done some really good, nice work, turned some things in. Others of you, I think, are having some difficulty knowing where do I start, what am I supposed to be doing, and how much of this am I supposed to be doing. Right now we have 2 assignments in the hopper. The first one is learning goals number 30, number 31, and number 32. And those are the 3 I'm going to do with you right now, and then I'll come back and do the next assignment. Before we go into that, just so you know, the first 3 pages of your packet, starting with the piano keyboard, these are just pages to help you. They're just there for information. They're in case you need to look at something bigger for your keyboard. So those little tiny ones on the pages are not easy to navigate. Okay, so the first 3 pages, pretty self-explanatory. All right. Learning goal number 30. Let's start there. By the way, I miss you guys like crazy. I really wish that this wasn't happening. And anything I can do to help, please let me know. All right. You can always email me. But to start with, let's get some learning done. I know some of us are probably thinking, oh, it's okay, I don't have to do anything. Just know that the OSPI, who are the superintendents of public instruction, are in Olympia, are coming up with new things weekly that teachers are responsible to teach you, and also how much you are being held accountable. So thank you for tuning in. Thanks for being accountable to what you need to do to be a good student. I really appreciate that, and in these crazy times, there's nothing like getting your brain working when you probably feel like not doing anything. Okay, so let's start with learning goal number 30. This one, guys, has to do, it's really basic theory, just naming letter names of your notes and studying which way the direction of the notes are going. So this should be review for everybody. The thing that's tricky with these learning goals is down at the bottom, they're doing a little checkup. And you may think, oh, that's it. That's all I have to do is just these 5 questions. But that's not true. There is more to do up at the top. All right. So let's read number 1. It says, study the notes and letters on the staff. All right. So you're looking and you're seeing all of these notes and letters and just kind of getting an idea of the direction of the notes. Okay. And what the letter names are. Then it says, study only the clef for your instrument. This is important. I've had a lot of students who are overdoing what they need to do or aren't sure. So remember, if you're a soprano or an alto, you sing in treble clef. You don't sing in this one. This is a strings clef. We never use it. As you can see, I've crossed it out. If you're a tenor or a bass, you're singing in bass clef. So I'm expecting you to do the work for your clef, either treble or bass. If you do both treble and bass, I'll give you some credit for that. So if I were you, I'd do both. The nice thing about doing both is then you get an idea of what notes are included in the harmonization of your songs. In other words, you should know that if the sopranos are singing, let's do this chord, a C, all right, the altos might be singing an F, and the baritones might be singing this low A, okay, and that's an F chord, F-A-C. The guys are singing the 3rd of the chord, altos are singing the root of the chord, the 1, and sopranos, you are singing the 5th of the chord. I'm okay. So it's just a good idea to get a handle on what note you're singing, whether it be treble clef singing the note or bass clef, so that you know what notes are in the chord that you are singing. Okay? All right. So after you've studied the notes, number 3 says, on the blank staff, write your own notes to follow the pattern of notes above from lowest to highest. Basically, guys, you're copying what's here onto this staff. Okay? You can do the treble. If you get so inclined, you can do the bass. Unless you are a tenor or baritone or bass, you're going to do the bass, right? Okay. The note making is, I think, the tricky stuff. You want to make sure that when you're making notes that they are readable. And as you can see, my first 4 notes are really easy to read, okay? And the way that I did the notes was with this thing I called the half moon method. And basically I'm making a half moon and then above it and then a half moon below it so that it doesn't overlap more than one line or space, and that's really important. So let me kind of show you here. See if I can do one in the air. So on this note A, it's in a space, so I'm going to do a half moon on the line and then a half moon below the line. And then my notes kind of come out a little bit more egg-shaped rather than round. They're really not supposed to be round. That's not one of the best notes I've ever made. I think I made it without doing it on my clipboard here. All right, this one, the B, I go above the line and a half moon below the line. So that the line B is going right through its center. And that's not one of the best ones I've ever made. Let me try it again. Okay, I'm gonna erase because I was a little high on the top half moon. So let's see if I can get a little bit better. This is a pretty little area to write in. So do your best work. That's all you can do, right? And that's what I'm expecting from you. Down here where it says checkup, you've got 5 questions. The first 4 are questions that you answer by writing in the answer. And then the 5th one is practice singing or playing the notes. So number 1 says the number of letters in the alphabet used for the names of the music. And remember, the number of letters in the alphabets used for names of music. Remember, guys, right here up at the top, it's going to tell you all the answers that are going to go down here. So let's see what it says. The first 7 letters of the alphabet are used for the note names and music. So it says the number of letters. What is it? Did you say 7? I hope you did, because that's the answer, right? So you're just putting that answer. And then down here it says, or up here it says, this pattern is used for notes going up, ascending. Notes coming down are descending. The next question says, another word for notes going up is ascending. So this is pretty self-explanatory. Easy peasy, right? Let's go on to Learning Goal 31. On this page, we are actually naming more of the notes. I want to remind you again, treble clef if you're a soprano or an alto. Don't do this one. This one is for stringed instruments. You are not a string instrument. And then we have bass clef for tenor or below, okay? If you do both, I give you credit for that. All you're doing is looking at the note and naming its letter name. Remember, one thing this is so elementary, but it works every time, and that is use your hand staff. So these are your 5 lines, okay? And we practice all the time at the elementary level, E, G, B, D, F, or elephants go backwards doing flips. Every good boy does fine, whatever poem you want to use. And then in between we have F, A, C, E is face. This is treble clef. Bass clef. Bass clef actually starts 1 step below and then adds a note at the top. So this note, which was G for going, this note, is now the starting note for bass clef. So instead of having an E down here, it's G, B, D, F, A. Good boys do fine always. And then all cows eat grass. And notice how that F, okay, starts with A now. So you can kind of see that's what happens with the music staff from treble to bass, okay? See if that makes sense to you. It seems to work for my elementary kids pretty well. So hand staffs are good. So just remember those names. And now, hey guys, if you're confused, then go back to the other page. Compare your notes that you're writing on this page with the ones that were shown to you in the number 30. But you do have to write all of those in. And some of the kids turned in their work without writing in their notes. So make sure you're practicing that. Down at the bottom at the checkup, it says notes are placed on either a blank or a blank. Up here, what does it say? Notes are placed on the staff in a specific pattern, each line or space having its own name. So what's the answer? Line or space. Okay? So reading up here will help you fill in the answers down below. Easy peasy. Next one. Learning goal number 32. This is my favorite one to do. This one has to do with enharmonic notes. Enharmonic notes are notes which sound the same, okay, they have the same pitch, but they're written and named differently, okay, by using a natural, sharp, or flat sign. So it's saying this right here, a natural, a sharp, or a flat sign. And you name them according to that. Now I'm going to take you back for a minute and show you our piano keyboard, the big guy here. Enharmonic notes are just simply the same pitch but called something else or called something different. So in other words, if I have, let's go to E flat for a minute. If I have this note, which is E flat, it can also be a D sharp, depending on the key that I'm in. Or sometimes a composer will change a note and make it, if it's an E flat in the key, and they'll call it a D sharp because maybe they've made an E natural somewhere and it's gotten the brain a little confused. So they will go, oh, we're going to call that a D sharp because that's going to help the person who's playing the piano or the person who's singing to really know where that note is in context to what's coming in the music. So that's why we do enharmonic notes. So let's go through some. D flat is also C sharp. E flat is D sharp. G flat is F sharp. A flat is G sharp. B flat is A sharp. So this page will really help you with the enharmonic number 32 lesson. So, and so on, okay? If they're down here and they're just named on their own, those are the naturals. So we have naturals, and then we have flats and sharps. Why aren't the naturals named natural? Because we just assume that if it's by itself that it is a natural. Now on the other page, they want you to write in the natural sign because otherwise it would be very confusing. So here's what I mean by that. On number 32, you are looking at each measure and you are looking at the first note and saying, okay, this is an F sharp and it's right here, F sharp. What is this next note going to be? Well, we know it's a G, and what did I have to call it? G what? I hope you said G flat, because that is the same as F sharp. So it's enharmonic. It can be called F sharp or it can be called G flat, depending on what the composer writes or would like in the key signature. So on every one of these, you're writing in the name of the next enharmonic note. So here's an E. Let's find E on this keyboard. And I can name it also an F flat. And so there is my F, and I'm going to put the flat sign in front of it. And this is where it can be a little confusing, by the way. Remember that when you're actually drawing the note, that the flat or natural or sharp goes in front of the note head, not behind it. Otherwise, it's an incorrect answer. However, if I'm writing the note, let's say I'm saying, okay, B flat, and I'm doing it with the spoken word or I'm writing it, I actually say it or write it after. Let me give you an example. On the next page, well, it's coming up. It's coming up on number 34, the learning goal. And that's where it's going to talk to you about writing it before, if you're writing the actual note, and if you're actually writing the note itself to be written down like as the answer, then the flat comes after. So if I'm saying B flat, I write it that way. If I'm writing the note, it's flat B. But I don't say it that way. I always say the note first. Crazy. A little confusing, but make sure you follow up with that page, okay? So back to my page 32. For my clef, I'm writing in my enharmonics. I can do it for treble, I can do it for bass, I can do it for both, but I'm not doing it for the staff in between. And then I'm doing the checkup at the bottom. Notes can be changed by adding sharps, flats, or natural, and you can just write the sign in there. And then it tells you or asks you a few more pretty easy questions, okay? So that's number 32. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and go on just because I'm on a roll here. And because we actually have 33, 34, 35, and 36 due by the end of the week. So let's go ahead and go on. On 33, this is pretty fun to do. It's whole steps and half steps, all right? Let's take a look at that keyboard again. If I go from a note to the next note and there's another note in between, it's a whole step. If I go from one note to the next but there's no note in between, it's a half step. So in my major scale, starting with C, my half steps are between E and F and B and C because there's no black key between, which means there's no other note between them. But let's say that I'm going from a C to a C sharp, or enharmonically, a D flat. For C to D flat, there's no other note in between, so am I going a whole step or a half step? I'm going a half step because there's no other note in between. Pardon me. If I'm going from C to D and there's a black key in between, then I have a note between them, and so I'm going a whole step. So these would all be whole steps, so it would be whole, whole, and this is a half, whole, 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 half. And that's the pattern of our scale, by the way. Let's say it again. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Okay, and you can see it just keeps continuing that way. So when we do a major scale, we always have that same whole and half step pattern. So this is a good way to learn that. And on this page, they're simply going to show you the notes, starting with F, going to G, and it might be helpful to look back at your keyboard and say, okay, I'm going from F to G. Is there a note in between? Yes. So if there's a note in between, is it a whole step or a half step? W, whole step. Okay. How about from G to A flat? Well, almost always when you go from a natural to an accidental, almost always it's going to be a half step. Almost. There's some exceptions in there, especially if it's between the 3rd and 4th degree of the scale or the 7th and 8th degree. That could be a game changer. But starting with G, going to A flat, half step, okay? And so I can look back at my piano keyboard because I'm going, what did I say? From G to A flat. Is there a note in between? No, it's a half step, all right? And I'm gonna do that for my particular clef, treble or bass, or both, if you're energetic and want to get some extra pats on the back from me. Yay. All right, down at the checkup, a half step occurs when there are blank possible notes between. We already talked about it. Is there a note between a half step? So the answer should be And then it goes on and asks you some more questions. One that we went through, half steps automatically occur between what two pitches in the major scale? Okay, and you can look by looking back at your keyboard. And then down here, number 4, half steps and whole steps are types of, important word, okay, and it tells you all the answers right up here. Okay, so make sure you're looking for those. All right, number 34, learning goals. This is major scales. Again, we're going to be talking about the differences between whole and half steps. We're going to be putting accidentals in where they're needed. So it's important to know the major scales. And why is this important? Well, we got to know what key we're singing in, right, guys? So we got to know what changes in the scale when we go to a new key. The home key for all music is always what key? I hope you said C. Okay, it's always the key of C. So they've given us, for our very first major scale here, they've started us on C. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That is the home major scale, all right? And it says, a major scale is made up of 8 notes. It's an octave. A special whole step, half step formula is used, and I just talked about that when we were doing wholes and halves in the last lesson. All intervals, which is the space between the notes, are whole steps except between the third and fourth note and the seventh and eighth note. Those places have an interval of a half step. When writing notes on the staff, the natural sharp or flat sign comes before. We talked about that, before the note. When writing the note letter names, it comes after. We talked about that. Number 1 says, write the numbers 1 through 8 under each scale degree or note. So all we're doing is writing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then it says write the note name below each number, including the flat or sharp sign. So we have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. There are no sharps or flats. Okay? And then it says, where notes are not given, write in the correct scale note. Be careful to write the note directly on the correct line or space. Okay, so in other words, where notes are not given, you got to write those in, like sharps and flats as well. So in this first one, we've added a sharp, and it's an F sharp. Okay, so it says we're going to be writing in this new key, and F sharp is the key of G. All right, you might remember 5 cats got dizzy at Eddie's bar mitzvah. Remember that poem I had up there? That is the order of the sharps, okay, and the order of the flats. Do you remember? Bead, GC fruit. So they're doing from 1 sharp to 2 sharps. So this is the key of, or sorry, an F sharp, and then 5 cats. Okay, so they've just done those 2 scales. And then the next one, they're showing you a blank one, and they're asking you to write the actual pitches in. So let's go back. I'm confusing myself. Hopefully I'm not confusing you. So we're writing in our numbers first, 1 through 8. Then we're writing in our notes underneath. And we're showing where the half steps are. And actually, they've shown you on the first 3. This one's G, A, and I'm going to write in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And G, A, B, C, D, E, and what am I going to put on the F? F sharp, because it's in the key signature, and G. So I've got to make sure that I add my sharp here. Okay? When I go to the next key, I've got F sharp and C sharp, 5 cats. I've got to make sure that when I put my F in, it's sharped. When I put my C in, it's sharped. That's important. When I get to the next one, I'm just writing in my actual notes, and they're the same ones as the ones above. They're actually giving you the key of C to start with, so you can practice making those half moons around those notes. Okay, and this one is just going up the C major scale. So you're just writing in your C major notes, like I've done here. Then on the next one, you're in with 1 flat. Remember, now we've got bead, GC fruit. So what's the first flat? B for bead, right? B. So we are putting B. We're going to put, starting on F, our note in. F, then they want G, and then they would like A, and B would be B. And you remember your flat sign's going to come before the note when you're drawing the note in. So your flat sign comes before the actual note. When you write it, it comes after. When you put the actual note in, it comes before. Okay? So now I'm going to put in my C, D, my E, my F, and I'm going to put my half steps in between 3 and 4, and I'm going to put my half steps in between 7 and 8. And I forgot to do that back on my other page, so I'm going to go ahead and put my little mountains in. Okay? And that's how I'm going to do that. Down at the bottom, I'm going to do checkup. Again, everything here is up here. Everything. So don't just try and, oh, I'll answer that question. read what's up here. Your answers are there, okay? And hopefully that will be self-explanatory for you. Learning goal 35. Let's keep rolling here, guys. On 35, it says, number 1, above each note of the scale, write the numbers. So this time we're putting the numbers above the notes. Then it says, place a circle around both notes that are a half step apart. So I'm putting a circle around the notes that are a half step apart. And I marked them with my mountains so you could see them as well, but I'm circling my notes. And then it says, put a half step symbol over the 2 circled notes. I showed you that I had already done that. And then number 4, do only the segments for your clef. We've already discussed that. At the bottom, they're asking you some questions. Now, they're getting a little less, it's at the top. They're saying, do you remember what you've been doing? It says there are how many half steps in a major scale? 1 between 3 and 4, 1 between 7 and 8. So how many is that? 1 between 3 and 4, 1 between 7 and 8. And you're writing that number there. And then there are no possible notes between a half step or a whole step. And these are review now. So you can do this. You can do this. Look back if you need to. Now we're starting to get a little further into it. When we get to number 36, we're going to do a review of everything that we've just done. And it says major scales not only start on a specific note, but also include a particular number of sharps or flats to form we've gone through this a million times in class, the key signature, right? The certain number of sharps or flats tells us what the key is, to allow for the correct whole step and half step formula. Because remember, in every key, it's the same formula. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. By the way, that's the answer to one of the questions on this page, so I hope you just heard what I said, and if you need to rewind, maybe you do. Number 1, write a scale on the staff beginning on each given note. So now they're going to take us through several scales. This one's going to start on the second line, G. Then it says, after you've written G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, don't forget there's one sharp there, you've got to name it. It comes before the note when you write it this way. Then it says, do only the segments for your clef, treble, or bass, or if you want to do extra, do both. Notice the key signatures which have been done for you, all right? So in other words, all the key signatures have already been put in. They're giving those to you. Nice of them. I think as we get a little further into the packet, they're not going to give them. They're going to have you put them in. So they started with 1 sharp. What is it? F. For 5, you know what? 5 cats got dizzy at Eddie's bar mitzvah. This is F. This is 5 cats. 5 cats got dizzy. So there's your 3. And then we're moving into flats. B, GC fruit, and they're only doing 3 of them. B, and then B flat, E flat, B flat, E flat, A flat. And I'm looking to see, yes, it is exactly the same in the bass clef. Okay? So they are both only going up to 3 sharps and 3 flats. Easy peasy, you guys. You've done way more than that in class. I wish you the best. I know you will be awesome at it. If you have any questions, remember when you get into Google Classroom, there is a place designed just for you to ask a specific question, and I'll get back to you and answer that as soon as I can. I hope you're safe. I hope you're well. Please zoom in on our meetings this coming Wednesday for the high school at 11:30 and Thursday for the junior high school, also at 11:30. I'm only zooming in once a week. If I don't see your smiling face, I cannot say that you are engaged in the learning process. So, zoom in, do your packet, have some fun in between. The karaoke assignment that I put in there, I think is the most fun for you right now. And so hopefully you will read directions and have some fun with that, okay? Make sure you look at it. I think it's going to be just a hoot. I've already gotten a couple of those back from my middle schoolers, high schoolers. Get on it. All right, you guys. Be safe. Stay well.